to Market on Close. I'm Marley, Kayden here in Chicago alongside Sam Vadas at the New York Stock Exchange. We'll close out our week with some final thoughts on this session and the week. Bitcoin falling to its lowest level since May today, below that mentally significant $100,000 level. Today's sell-off continues a month-long trend in which Bitcoin has now lost about 20% of its value. Likely driving that move to the downside is the uncertainty regarding the Fed's move in December. We're right near levels we saw at the beginning of the year before falling as low as 76,000 in April. By October, though, crypto had steadily risen to all-time highs of 126,000. Since then, we have retreated from those levels the past few weeks. Right now, Bitcoin is priced under 95,000. That's its lowest level in 6 months. And also, Warner Brothers Discovery finds itself back in the spotlight today as it's in at least a three-way bidding war for part or potentially all of its business. The stock got close to new highs today on news of forthcoming offers from Comcast, Netflix, and Paramount Skydance as potential suitors for the company. Shares are up about 115% year to date, and that's a story we've continued to talk about, Sam. They're hoping to have that wrapped up by the end of the year, so obviously one we'll be keeping a close eye on. But what caught your eye during the session today?
Well, it was really capping off a week where we saw a lot of rethinking about rate cuts and also technology. But this week, we really saw a change in tone on those rate cuts. The market odds of a reduction from the Fed next month falling below 50% after indications we may not be getting all the official delayed data. Now, we've just learned that obviously we're going to be getting the jobs data on Thursday, but it also comes amid a busy week of Fed speak, which casts more doubt over a December cut. Jeffrey Schmid from Kansas City suggesting today he might dissent again at the next meeting if they do decide to cut interest rates further. He's of the thinking that that could add more fuel to the inflation fire, more so than actually shoring up the jobs market. Now, Minneapolis President Neil Kashkari telling Bloomberg that he didn't support the last cut and actually argued for a pause in the October meeting, adding that he's now on the fence for December, citing underlying resilience in economic activity, which was more than he expected. So it's been very interesting listening to some of this commentary, Marley, particularly in the absence of some of this data, and particularly because the markets are now pricing in not a coin flip, but actually less than that. But what are you going to be looking out for next week?
Funny how there's never been so much focus on the Fed speakers until we didn't have any data. But as far as next week, it's a bit obvious for me. NVIDIA, they'll report their earnings on Wednesday, and they are guaranteed to be a major market catalyst in some way. The question is, in which direction will the markets move? Expectations are calling for earnings of about $1.23 per share on revenues of $54.5 billion, both of which, if they hit them, would mark more than 50% growth from the year-ago quarter. We'll also hear from a slew of retail names: Target, TJX, Walmart, Gap, BJ's Wholesale, and Ross. So we will get some more info on our potentially K-shaped economy and also the spending habits of the consumer and some consumer resiliency, because the data that we're getting and the earnings we're getting are sometimes feeling a little bit like they're not walking in tandem. How about you, Sam? What are you watching?
Well, we've got a lot of Chinese ADRs on the docket next week as well. And these are a lot of companies that are geared to China's economy. And it's been interesting, actually, because we actually got some ugly data out last night. Remember, I was talking about those economic indicators not looking so pretty. But what we've seen, actually, is some of these companies this week, like JD and Tencent, actually performing quite well despite the macro backdrop there. So we're going to be hearing from Xpeng. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about this name. It's been on a tear, up over 100% year to date. It's going full Tesla, as some have described it, and it really much positions itself as more of the technological of the EV makers over in China. We'll hear from Pinduoduo. It's also another favorite amongst US investors, of course, with that US listing. It's been struggling a little bit somewhat because others have been sort of cutting its grass as far as market share on affordability, but still things have been holding up. We'll also hear from Xiaomi and also China's internet giant, which has been coming out with new chips as well, and that is Baidu, Marley.
Thanks so much, Sam. That is going to do it for us on Market Close.